It's always been a small
Okay, I can do this.
All right, good morning, everyone. How are you? Thank you for being here. This is such a treat to have such a full room, so I appreciate it. We start team meeting off by telling us something good. What good news has happened in your world lately?
We're a sad bunch of people.
What bad news has happened in your world? Because clearly there's been a lot of bad. Kirk.
I'm still here.
Yes, we are appreciative of that.
I've been diagnosed with lymphoma back in May, so I've got
What?
cancer.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I've been through 2 rounds of chemotherapy and feeling great. Prognosis is good. I'm still here.
Awesome sauce.
Thank you for sharing that. Definitely thinking about you and praying. All right, we have our strategic partners. Let's hear from Tiffany McWhorter with their Kelly and Sorhan.
Joy and I staring each other down. Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Tiffany with Kelly and Sorhan, as you guys know. 2 things. I wanted to tell you that our party at Meganham, for all of you guys who are attending, is going to be Monday night. We're still trying to lock down a location, but it'll definitely be Monday night. So it'll be the same thing, happy hour that we normally do. So come out and have some fun, and some drinks and some food. Who's going? Anybody? Megan. Austin? Okay, so we'll get out an invite for that. And then I wanted to talk about powers of attorney. So we've been wow. So it's just the season. People are traveling a ton right now, and so I felt like yesterday everything that I did was either a power of attorney or a mail out. So just the earlier you can give us a heads up on those, the better, because on a buyer side, one, we have to make sure that they have a reason that qualifies with the lender to use a power of attorney. So a lot of times if it's, my wife wants to be at home with the movers, they're gonna say no. If they want signatures, if at all possible, to get, original signatures on there. If not, if they do approve it, then we have to email them over our draft power of attorney, have them approve it with the underwriter to make sure that it meets all their, underwriting criteria for a power of attorney. And then we have them executed and go from there. So it's not difficult at all, but the more time we have to do that, the better. And then same thing, we have a lot of elderly people whose kids want to sign for them. And, we'll walk it out to the car if they're not comfortable coming in, but, however we need to get it signed, we can. And I'm sure Joy's gonna weigh in a little bit, but it's still, don't offer to do power of attorney yourself for your clients. Keller Williams still doesn't allow that. And it's because any acts that you did as power of attorney are not covered by the E&O insurance here, so you're acting outside of your realm of agent, So, and if they need a power of attorney, we can always help find one if they don't have anybody in Georgia or set up in England. So just let us know. Just the big thing there was just the earlier we know about it, the need for it, the better, because we can get it all. Thank you guys.
Thank you. Right, Julie James.
Yes, thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning. Okay, I'm going to piggyback on what Tiffany said. I had like 2 power of attorney closings last week. I get power of attorney closings all the time, or questions all the time. So we do not allow an agent to represent as power of attorney. I know Keller Williams doesn't either, but we don't allow that. And please let us know as soon as possible. Like I had somebody on Wednesday want to do a power of attorney for Friday. It's too late in the deal. We're already like closing it. Okay. Yeah. So we worked it out. The guy was going out of the country. I'm thinking, you didn't know you were going out of the country? But anyway, and so many people are moving from out of state, elderly parents, that kind of thing. And we have to know why they're doing it. It can't just be for convenience. Okay, they have to write a letter for us. So Melloway, same thing. We're seeing more of those because of out-of-state buyers. The more time, the better, because we have to prepare. There's certain things we have to do on our end. So keep that in mind. This time of year, was one thing I wanted to mention, taxes are going to start coming out, tax bills, probably in September. But just know this time of year, like for the escrow account that we're setting up for a buyer, there's like 11 or 12 months in there, right? Because if they close in August, the first payment's not going to be due until October. So we're setting up a big chunk of taxes for the escrow account. This is way more information you want to know. But just know, that's a chunk they need at closing, right? So sometimes people are like, what? There's a reason for that. And they're also sticker shocked now with the amount that we have to put in there. Like new construction, for example, if it's a $600,000 house, this year, of course, the taxes are going to be based on a lot, but that's not how we set the escrow account up. So in a $600,000 house, taxes are probably going to be $6,200, let's just say. Okay? Way higher. Because what do you think? We always get it from the attorney, but probably $7,000. Yeah, 1.2, 1.25 is a good rule of thumb. That's a lot of money. Okay, so in that case, if there's $7,000, that's $7,000 you're going to need just for the taxes. So just kind of know that it's an educational thing, I think, and it's good for you guys to know that because this time of year is tough for escrows. And the tax bills are going to start coming out, and people are going to, it's going to be based on these new values. So just FYI on that. And then one other thing I think it's worth a mention. We sent out an email blast last week. Some of you might have gotten it. July 1st, the medical collection debt. This is going to be kind of a good thing, or it is good. Anything that's been repaid won't be on a credit report anymore. So this is good news for credit scoring. All the bureaus have kind of gone away from that. So they're changing some things with medical collections. You guys wouldn't believe the amount of medical collection debt that we see on the credit report, and it really affects. And then next year, anything $500 or less won't show up at all. And that, I know that's crazy, but we'll see something $20, $40, $50, $60, and that really affects them sometimes. So there's going to be a lot of changes with the bureaus with medical collection debt. So just so you kind of know that. I mean, this is just an interesting little fact. 1 in 4 Americans, so like 4 of us, carries medical debt. So if I'm looking for credit reports, one of us is going to have a page of medical collections. So it's a huge deal, but some positive things coming down the pipeline. I know it's a lot, but do y'all have questions? There's always stuff going on in our world. Just passing them along. Thank you guys. Call us if you need us.
Thank you. All right, we have some of our other vendors in the room. If you don't mind standing up and saying hello.
Tim Nelson, this other solutions, communications,
Matt Wellman, the Northwest Exterminating, termite, wildlife, process.
And I'm Kelly Combs with Northwest Exterminating. Ditto.
Sammy Baker, contractor, Best Festival.
Thank you. All right, we're going to get into some classes that we have coming up here this month. We have a CE contracts class with David Maxey that's this Wednesday, so if you need CE credit hours, you'll want to make sure that you're in that class. I will be there. I'm going to take 6 hours in the next 80 days to renew my license. So good timing on that one. Next Tuesday at team meeting, we have Jenny, and she is going to be teaching us on lead gen systems and tools. I don't know if any of y'all are in that pivot shift ahead group, but Jenny's often featured in there. She's a really amazing, great agent. And so I'm excited to hear from her. And then we have buyer brokerage agreements with David Maxey. And then we have some great tech classes coming up with our new tech trainer, Kelly. So that'll be a great class for y'all to be in. Tomorrow, we are kicking off our Wealth Building Wednesday series. We are doing a group study of Ben Kinney's wealth series. So we had a really, really great mastermind a couple of months ago, and an agent that was leading the mastermind with us just raved about Ben Kinney's wealth building series. And she just said how it was life-changing. And many of the agents that were in the room that day were like, we need to do this together. So if you want to participate in that, it's tomorrow at 11. And your homework for that class is to listen to the part 1 of the podcast series. It's free. You can download it anywhere. But it's the Win, Make, Give series. And there's a link in our Facebook group that'll take you exactly to that podcast that you need to do. So good. We have a team job fair that is next week from 2 to 3:30. So if you're interested in learning more about what it's like to be on a team or want to join a team, come to that. We'll give you some really great information. And then at the end of the month, we have a really great Cares for Kids book bag party that we're doing. Every single year we put together book bags to give out to the community, and we'll be doing that team meeting at the church, and it's a lot of fun. So bring kids or whoever you have at home that might want to help with that.
Can I interject real quick?
Yes.
If you have like a place you'd like to take the book bags, we usually do 10 at a time. So if you have a school, if you have an organization or what have you, please reach out to me. Love to be able to talk with you about how We got 185 book bags. We need to also deliver 2 kids in our neighborhood, okay?
Awesome. And then we have career day that is this Thursday, and then we have career night that is next week. So if you know someone that's interested in getting started in real estate, send them to that class. All right, I am super excited about today's team meeting. We have Matt Dickison with us, and he is with Gwinnett County Planning and Zoning. And we all know that Gwinnett County has experienced huge growth, and he's going to share with us a little bit more about the 10-year outlook for Gwinnett County, and he's joining us on Zoom. So bear with me, and I'm going to get him on the big screen here. Hey, Matt, can you hear us?
Hey, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good.
And you need to make sure that you can share the screen, so I'm making you the co-host. And that should allow you to share your screen.
So how big is my face on the screen? Is it like wall size or?
Now it is. We were
Oh,
on
great.
gallery view. Welcome. We're so excited to have you today. Thank you for doing this.
Sure. Yeah, I'm sorry I couldn't be there in person. It's actually worked out well because I've been a little bit under the weather the last few days. So definitely glad to not come contaminate your group. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Did you have anything else to say, Sarah? You want me to get started?
Yeah, no, go ahead. The floor is yours.
All right. So good morning, everyone. My name is Matt Dickison. I'm the Assistant Director of Planning and Development for Gwinnett County. I started with the county actually not that long ago in January of 2021. Before that, I worked in several different locations in planning and development. I was the planning director for the city of Chamblee previously for about 6 years. And then before that, worked in for a private planning firm, CPL or Clark Patterson Lee, and did a lot of contract planning, worked for the city of Dunwoody, city of Johns Creek, a lot of cities I'm sure y'all are familiar with. And obviously Gwinnett County, we have a lot of stuff going on, as I'm sure you all are very well aware. So I was gonna start by just sharing sort of some trends and zoning and development trends that I think are useful and informative of what's happening in the county. And then I wanted to talk a little bit more specifically about the housing study that the county just completed, and which talks about sort of the 10-year outlook for housing demand and growth in the county. And then really just leave time to answer any questions. Can you remind me how much time this meeting last till 12?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, all right. I just want to make sure I leave time for questions. So I'm going to share my screen with me here. All right, can y'all see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Let's see what I'm sharing. All right, so this first chart just shows sort of the trends for building permits that have been issued since 2018. So between, and this doesn't include this calendar year, but the shorter shows the trend, and just know that any trend for 2021 is growing. We're definitely not reducing in any areas in terms of development, but you can sort of see how, you know, the COVID impact, you know, has sort of slowed the pace of increase, but really didn't stop. And I'm sure y'all have experienced that too. I mean, there really wasn't a drop in development activity in the county. We kept, you know, the county stayed open for business during COVID. We never closed one day. So we were sure to meet the demands of the community. But you can see overall in the county, we're issuing about 3,000, a little over 3,000 permits per year. And most of those are still in the single family detached area. Clearly you can see those townhomes, the demand for townhome permitting has more than doubled between 2018 and 2021. And we're seeing that continue into this year. Now the multifamily permits, you can see that that's number of building permits, not number of units. So that's 109 multifamily buildings that were permitted in 2021. So clearly much more demand for multifamily. And then this just shows you, so these are development permits. Development permit, it just means when someone wants to come in and basically move dirt to build infrastructure. The first step in the process for permitting is a development permit. That's when the applicant comes in or their representative and submits plans for the infrastructure and utilities and sort of on the ground and under the ground activity. And you can see this is 2018. We have this divided by commission district. So we have, if you're not familiar, we have 4 district commissioners in Gwinnett County and then a chair, and that's Chairwoman Hendrickson currently. And then so these district boundaries are for the 4 different commission districts. And you can kind of see as I scroll through here how really, they're pretty widely distributed throughout the county. There's really not one area in terms of development permits that, really stands out over the other. Which for Gwinnett County is pretty descriptive of the past. Gwinnett County has oftentimes been sort of the poster child for sprawl. And you can kind of see this in terms of there's really no physical boundaries to development. That's not unique just to Gwinnett. That's Metro Atlanta. Other big cities you can think of may have a river or an ocean or mountains or something that sort of curtails expansion of the city in certain directions. Atlanta's pretty much wide open. And Gwinnett County has really been no different. Development has really been spread throughout the county, which is something the county's focusing on over the next 10 years is there are things that are developing in the county that no one anticipated. So I'm sure y'all have seen a lot of large religious institutions that are putting signs up for sale and being developed into apartments and residences and commercial development. And really in the early planning days, the county didn't really anticipate that type of development. So one of the big things that we're focusing on currently and over the next few years is how do we catch up in terms of infrastructure? And that's especially challenging when you have a sprawling community because if you have targeted development, you can focus your transportation improvements, your sewer water infrastructure improvements in those areas. But when you're developing sort of widespread, you have to spread out that infrastructure. So one of the things, not to get ahead of myself, but one of the things that we're looking at within the update we're going to undertake with our comprehensive plan this year and next year is how do we get more focused on certain nodes in terms of focusing density and dense development in certain areas of the county, as opposed to spreading it along major corridors, which has been sort of the historic development context of the county. We also process in our department business licenses, alcohol licenses, and hotel motel licenses. And you can see same thing here, very similar trends. With an overall increase in the number of those permits issued. A big thing, and I know y'all touch this a lot, but is our planning division here handles zoning applications for the county. A pretty major increase in zoning applications you can see here from 2018 to 2021. We're up to 227 zoning applications. So that number includes rezoning. So when someone wants to change their zoning designation from one district to the other, it also includes special use permits. So some uses require a special level of review. For instance, like a auto repair facility in C1 may require a special use permit. So they have to go before the Planning Commission and Board of Commissioners to get that special review, have a public hearing. So it includes those kinds of items. And then we typically attach zoning conditions to every zoning. So if someone wants to make changes to those, they have to go through that zoning process again. We're still very busy this year. We have, I think, anywhere from January through July, we've had anywhere from, I would say the shortest, maybe 18 zoning cases. I know next month we have something like 36. So there's a lot of zoning activity going on in the county, which y'all know the zoning comes first. And then once the zoning's complete, then the development permitting, and then y'all get involved with selling the property. So definitely no shortage of supply. Unfortunately, that supply is still nowhere near meeting demand, which we'll talk a little bit about when I get to the housing study. This is just another map showing the zoning applications, and I can share these with y'all when we're done if you want to take a deeper dive, but just sort of shows again how the zoning cases are distributed throughout the county. And then overall, there's really not many parts of the county that are left untouched. The western part of the county, near Barrow County along 316, has had less recently. A lot of that is because there's not sewer infrastructure and water infrastructure in that area. I'm sure you all have seen or heard about the Rowan development. Rowan is a project that the county purchased a lot of the land along 316 between the city of Tequila and Barrow County, and is working with a board, the Rowan Foundation, to develop that into a knowledge community. It's being compared to sort of the Research Triangle in Chapel Hill. And it's really focusing on creating those high-paying research jobs. And along with that's obviously going to come a lot of supportive development, whether that's housing, commercial, hopefully some mixed-use development. And so the county has issued millions of dollars in bonds to expand water and sewer infrastructure into that part of the county. And as y'all know, as soon as that infrastructure comes, the type of development and the amount of development when you're not having to build on septic is a game changer. So that's sort of, I would call it sort of the last frontier of the county, the last part of the county that's really not been developed. The Rowan specifically is encouraging development, but there's also some really nice natural resources in that area. So they're also very preservation minded. And it'll be interesting to see how that expands out into areas surrounding the Rowan project in the future. Rezoning approval. So this just shows, previously we were talking about zoning applications. This converts it to square footage and units. So you can see, unfortunately, we approved over 10,000 new multifamily units through rezonings in 2020. There's a drop in that in 2021, which goes towards housing affordability and availability. If we're not meeting that demand, we really shouldn't be decreasing the number of units in any category in order to meet demand. And you can see commercial square footage also has dropped from 2019, but is increasing. We hear it all the time that there's no demand for commercial development. I think, I'm obviously more in the planning sphere and not the real estate and market demand field like y'all are. But I think what we're seeing more specifically is we have developers coming in and saying, well, there's all this vacant commercial. And I agree, there's a lot of vacant big box strip centers. But what you see is a lot of these town center type developments where you have vertical mixed use and you have more service oriented commercial retail restaurants. Those places seem to be doing well. So unfortunately, it's sad to realize, but in all of incorporated Gwinnett County, I think we have probably 2 vertically integrated mixed use projects. The rest of the vertically mixed use projects are within cities. That's going to be changing over the next few years as the cities continue to build out and develop their cores. A lot of that demand for mixed use, walkable, multifamily development is coming into other parts of the county, specifically with the development around the Infinite Energy Center, Gwinnett Place Mall, the OFS site, and then the tennis center and Mall of Georgia area. Those are areas where there is build up demand for vertical mixed use development. And then also, hopefully we can get into being able to justify structured parking, which is really necessary in order to create a really true walkable, dense environment. You can't have, thousands of surface parking spaces and say you're a walk friendly community. It's nearly impossible to do. And I think we're starting to get to that in certain areas of the county where the numbers are hopefully going to start justifying that type of development. This is just, again, a map of the zoning cases. I won't spend a lot of time on this, but you can see where, this one is the multifamily rezonings. The size of the circle is comparative to the number of units. So sort of makes sense. You don't see a lot in District 3, and you see some redevelopment and infill happening in District 1 and 2 and 4 in the eastern part of the county, which is exciting. We actually had a zoning case on the agenda this month. It's an old extended stay hotel down in the off of Jimmy Carter, and they're rezoning to convert it into attainable apartments. And I'm not sure how much y'all are aware of the extended stay facilities, but while they are somewhat affordable or attainable, they tend to also not maybe be the best living environment depending on how they're maintained. And a lot of times they end up being more expensive than an apartment just based on, paying weekly. And we have a lot of those in certain parts of the county. And while it's important to redevelop those, the county also has to stay mindful of the people that are living in those facilities. Where do they go? And that's not an easy question to answer, but it's one we're trying to tackle. This just shows rezoning approvals by commission district. So you can see District 3 has been hot. Most of those have been single family. So you can see this breaks it up by district. So District 1 is Cardin. Again, that's the eastern sort of along the river. And you can see the majority of housing units approved between 2018 and 2021 in District 1 have been multifamily. District 2 is Commissioner Koo. That's sort of some of the more established communities around Mountain Park and Stone Mountain. Those parts of the county has been pretty well split between multifamily townhomes and single family. District 3 is very heavily single family detached for the reasons we probably all know. It's still relatively undeveloped or rural in nature. And a lot of the development coming in has been developed as what we call open space conservation subdivisions. And those are where the developer can come in and if they have a site that's encumbered by stream buffers or floodplain or other environmental issues, they can sort of count that area towards their overall density and develop a smaller lot size. So the overall density of the site is still, maximum 2.5 units per acre, but you're doing 6,000 square foot lots. So it's sort of an opportunity to develop those properties with single family detached on a smaller lot size. And District 4 is pretty much split down the middle, I guess down the quarter, and has quite the biggest variety of housing types. That's because it includes areas like, Lawrenceville and north up to Brazelton over to Sugar Hill, parts of Sugar Hill and Swanee. Won't spend much time on this. This is just rezoning, the number of acres rezoned. So again, as I mentioned, District 3 has had a lot of that OSC zoning. So, about 2,000 acres has been rezoned to OSC over that 4-year time period. This is our current zoning map. So these show all of the different zoning districts in the county. Obviously, zoning regulates land use, dimensional requirements for development, density, parking, those kinds of things. The highest amount of zoning in the county is still R100, which is your traditional 100-foot residential lot. That makes up 32% of the county. Second most is the RA200. You can see that green. RA200 is our agricultural zoning district. It's large lot development. And as I mentioned earlier, you can see that area between, I don't know if you can see my cursor, but between Decula and Barrow County is pretty much all RA200. And so I think over the next 10, 15 years, we're going to see that change pretty drastically once we have sewer infrastructure there. And then the third is R75, which is a 75-foot wide lot, which is some of the older, more historic areas of the county in that darker yellow. This is our 2040 unified plan. So when you're talking about what does the future hold for the county, this is the map that we look at when someone comes in for a zoning change. One of the first things we're going to do is pull up this map and say, okay, well, let's see what character area you're in the 2040 unified plan. And you can see there are several different character areas in here, the red being the most dense or intense. Those are our regional activity centers. And those are some of the sites that I mentioned earlier. You have Gwinnett Place Mall here to the north, coming down 85. The next one is Sugarloaf Mills, Gwinnett Arena area. The next one down on 85, that's Gwinnett Place Mall. And then the last one is the OFS site down near Norcross. And so those are the areas that the community and the county has said, this is where we want dense development. So a lot of it's been given away over the past few years with development that I don't think professionally and personally qualifies as regional activity center development. You may see some smaller, 3-story apartment buildings or some strip center commercial development come in. That's really not what we're looking for. In those areas, we're looking for mid-rise, even high-rise if we ever get to the numbers that justify that. In those developments, that's really where we want sort of downtown type intense development. And then the lighter red areas you see, those are sort of spread along the major corridors. That's one of the areas that we're targeting in this update to the plan, to say we need to get away from this sort of linear strip development, and we need to be more intentional with where those community mixed use areas are located. Those should be sort of the smaller scale mixed use centers. So when you vision a regional activity center, you should mention like a Atlantic Station or what's the one in Alpharetta, the big mixed use development? What is it? Yeah, the Avalon, those types of development where you're picturing dense development. When you think of community mixed use, you should maybe think of like a Swanee Town Center or downtown Duluth, where, it's going to draw people from the surrounding area. You probably won't, you may come to Swanee Town Center occasionally for something from the other side of the metro area, but most likely not. But probably everyone in the area has visited Atlantic Station, whether they wanted to or not. They may have ended up there. So that's kind of the thinking when you think the difference between a regional activity center and a community mixed use center. And then it works its way down to, sort of that orange area, which is it's kind of peach looking, that's vibrant communities. Those are really the areas where we're looking to have mixed residential development. So that's where we want to have a combination of living opportunities where people can live, maybe rent a basement apartment or a garage apartment when they're in college, to purchasing a condo or living in an apartment when their first job, to maybe they can afford to buy a townhouse and then maybe move in the same neighborhood to a single family house and then retire in some senior housing or back into that sort of accessory apartment or granny flat, as a lot of times they're called. So those are the areas where we really are looking for sort of a lot of variety and living types. They're typically accessible to those regional and community mixed use centers. So you can maybe walk or bike, or hopefully in the future take transit to some of those activities and not have to get in your car. And then you have the yellow, which is, the county has some really nice single family detached neighborhoods, some really great existing large lot development. Those areas are meant to sort of be minimally impacted by development and maintained as much as possible. Like I said, Rowan is going to impact that. So we'll see how that changes the map in the future. I'm going to bump ahead because I'm dragging on here to the housing study. So this is the population projections for the county. There's a couple out there. So that red line is sort of the low, and that's based on just sort of permitting trends. If we were just to stay consistent, we anticipate that by 2040, the county will have about 1.3 million people. We're at about 1 million right now. And then the high is in the 2040. It's really aggressive. It anticipates that we'll have about 1.5 million people in the county. And then the housing study sort of took an average approach to those. So the housing study is based on a forecast that by 2040, we'll have 1.4 million people in the county, which percentage-wise isn't as near as fast as it used to be. I think it's something we're anticipated to grow at like 2.5 or 3%. Where back in the day it was in the double digits. But when you're talking about 2.5% of 1 million people, that's still a huge number. So definitely a lot of growth. And Gwinnett is sort of been unique in terms of county development. A lot of the other counties, as you know, the Fultons and DeKalbs, and most recently almost Cobb, but those measures failed. There's been a lot of cities created, and Gwinnett has cities, a lot of them historic. Of course, Peachtree Corners is our newest city that was formed by the residents, but still, a huge chunk of the county is within an incorporated Gwinnett, and you'll see that here in a second. Just overall kind of thoughts and reasoning behind the changes in housing demand. I'm sure y'all know this, but there's still demand for large single family lots, but it's less than it used to be. There's a lot more households without children in the county. This is the first census where more households in Gwinnett County have not had children than have had children. And if you know Gwinnett County, that's a huge change because Gwinnett County was sort of founded on people moving here with kids in the school district. And now we actually have more people in the county that don't even have kids in the household. So how does that change demand in the future of the county? Households are getting smaller, though that has changed somewhat with COVID. We see a lot of people sort of moving in with the family or living with friends or siblings because of economic reasons, and also just because of lack of options for housing. So household size is one of those that is sort of bucking the trend. That's why when we talk about this type of stuff, like demographics is housing study, it's based on the best information that we have when it's created, but you don't want to bet on it or gamble on it, because who would have thought COVID would come, right? I mean, I know there are probably people out there that said, I knew it, but I think for the most part, that was a huge market interrupter, right? That was something that the market could have never anticipated. So just keep that in mind when I'm talking about the housing study, because it's sort of our best guess. It's not factual, but it's something that we use to plan on. Rental housing, I'm sure y'all are familiar with that. There's a huge number of homes being built for rent. The BTR, Build B, is that right? Yeah. Housing development in the county has been huge. We've had a lot of applications come in for building full communities, townhouse and single family detached that are rental. A lot of people don't like it. It's not something that the government can regulate at this time. It's sort of, I think, in my opinion, it's just a reaction to the market. I think as soon as because there's been talk at the state level about how do we address this, and at the local level, I think once the government gets around to reacting to it, it's probably going to have changed, but we'll see how that goes. This is sort of the whole reason why we're in the situation we're in right now, with y'all out there selling homes that 10 years ago would have probably been sold for 100,000. Now it's 400,000 or 500,000, because of the number of permits issued, right? So the average number of permits issued in the county between 1980 and 2007 was about 8,300 permits per year. Since 2010, we've been issuing 3,100. So simple study of supply and demand, right? The number of units we're providing has decreased, population's increasing, income's increasing. So we don't have the supply to meet the demand, hence the what I think are crazy prices. This is just showing again the types of housing that's been permitted. In 2020, and this is existing and permitted. So still 70% of housing in Gwinnett County is single family detached housing. Everybody's townhomes everywhere. Oh my God, they're building townhomes on my street. You can still see that townhomes only make up 5% of the housing units in the entire county. So it seems like a lot now, but that's just because we don't have a lot as it exists currently. Again, most of the housing units are in unincorporated Gwinnett. Again, we're managing most of the population. Age of housing is huge, so I'm sure y'all have seen this. By 2040, we're going to have the majority of our housing units over 50 years old, which is about the reasonable life expectancy of houses that were built during that time. Now, the houses built in the 70s, 80s, 90s are not meant to last like they were back in like the Victorian days, right? Where you have just the craftsmanship and the housing development was just different, So now these houses, if they've not been substantially renovated, are coming to their end of life. What are we going to replace them with? More than likely, we're not going to replace them with the same ranch house on a large lot. So we're seeing increased demand in tear down rebuilds in certain areas that, in-town Atlanta has been experiencing for years, right? But now we're going to start seeing this happen more often, especially in the eastern and southern parts of the county where people are coming in, depending if sewer is available, because we do still have a lot of properties in the Lilburn Mountain Park area that are served by septic. But they're not going to, they're going to come in and you're going to put a couple lots together and build 20 townhomes, or you're going to build, 10 lots where you had one. So that's obviously something that we take into consideration. Sales price, I'm sure y'all probably have better numbers than me on this, but the average sales price for a new single family detached home went from $285,000 in 2015 to $396,000 in 2021. Townhomes, major increase, $198,000 to $322,000. And then apartments, astounding increase. The average in 2021 for an apartment in Gwinnett County is $1,500. That seems low to me now when you drive around and see some of these new apartments and then get on Zillow, they're renting, for $2,000 for a 1-bedroom. So clearly that's a problem in terms of certain people in the community not being able to afford to live in the community. Mentioned this already. So single family homes and townhouses make up 35% of rental housing in Gwinnett. So again, this is the real estate trust coming in and purchasing homes very quickly, paying much more than what the average person can pay, and then turning them around and renting them out. We have about 6,800 homes that are owned by a real estate investment trust in the county. 93% of those are owned by the 5 largest in the country. And then, like I said, we have a lot of new Residential Parkland communities. They're building a ton of properties that are built just for rental. And that's something we're trying to look at in terms of how do we manage that in the future? What happens when they start to fail? Not fail, but when the market doesn't make sense to rent anymore, it makes more sense to sell. How does that affect the management of those properties? And then here's the big number. So from the housing study, the average annual demand for new housing units over the next 10 years will be 15,000 units per year. And if you remember, where's my chart here? So this chart, so the forecast annual demand for housing is 15,000 units. Of those, and this is kind of confusing, so 6,000 of those will replace other units. So that again is that aging of housing. So 6,000 will be replaced. So we're really talking about 9,700 new units per year. But that still well exceeds what we've been permitting, which is 3,500, right? So again, simple supply and demand. We're anticipated, if we keep at this pace, to only meet 24% of demand. And then here's another sort of stark number, not to be all doom and gloom, but we're doing the best for middle income housing. So in this study, we consider middle income housing those households that make between $50,000 and $100,000 a year. We're meeting about 43% of that demand. But you can see on the low income, for people making under 50,000, we're only meeting 2% of that demand per year, which is not great. But we also have a problem on the upper end. There's a lot of demand for executive style housing for incomes that make over 100,000, which is a strong growth income bracket in the county. And we're not nearly meeting that demand either. So we have a lot of demand on the low end and also on the high end. Some affordability numbers.
Hey, Matt.
Yes.
Oh, us?
Can you hear me?
Oh, now you're back.
Oh.
Sorry, we lost you there for a second on our end.
It's all right. So just real quickly, so these are sort of the strategies that came out of the housing study. Is this housing study was just a simple supply of demand and supply. The next step is for the county to sort of shift it into high gear. And, to me, it's really surprising that a county the size of Gwinnett does not have a entire staff dedicated to housing. I think that's going to change. I know that's one of the chairwoman's objectives is to get more people looking at housing. I mean, Fulton County, DeKalb, City of Atlanta, they all have housing departments. We have myself that knows a little bit about housing. We have Shannon Candlers, who's in our grants department, who knows a little bit about housing. We have a lot of good local sort of nonprofit agencies that really help. But I think over the next months and year, we're going to see more people dedicated to housing. And when I say housing, it's how does the county help meet the needs of the lower income and affordable housing in the county? Because the market's not going to provide that. And then real quickly, I just wanted to mention some of the things we are doing to allow different housing types. Hopefully over the next 10 years, we're going to see a lot more of what is called missing middle housing. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but essentially it's all the stuff in the middle. So the county, the country does a really good job at providing single family detached housing and a really good job at providing apartments, right? All that stuff in the middle is really hard to find unless you're in sort of Virginia Highlands or, parts of Midtown, sort of historic, the housing you would find in a historic community, some of those, townhouses, courtyard buildings, multiplexes, live work facilities, a house that maybe that quadplex, it looks like a single family house from the outside. It fits into the context of the neighborhood. But when you go up to the door, you see there's 4 mailboxes, things like that, sort of that missing middle is what that's called. And so one of the projects we're working on now is thinking about ways we can amend our current zoning regulations to allow a lot more diversity in housing types, which will hopefully allow us to create some more attainable housing. So we're not just building, 3,000 square foot single family homes and $3,000 a month apartments, maybe allowing people to have more accessory dwelling units, allowing some areas of the county to have smaller, homes that can accommodate a range of different families and income ranges. So this project just looked at, all the zoning districts in the county, what you can and cannot do. The things that we're moving forward with is to, hopefully streamline the review process. So one of the things that stops people from developing is having to deal with us, our department, and the elected officials. And so ways we can take out some of that uncertainty and say, if you're in this particular area, you're approved to do these types of housing units at this density. If you want to deviate from that, then yeah, you have to go through a public process. But the more we can take uncertainty out of the development process, the more development we'll get. And then, thinking about density in a different way, instead of, limiting, we may, instead of saying you can only do X units per acre, we say, well, you can do as much density as you want, but you have to make sure it's not this tall, or, it needs to be built in this way. It's often what we call form-based zoning. I'm sure you've come across that. But to get less concerned with sort of density and use and more concerned with how does the development fit in with the context of the community and meet the needs of the community. So those are some of the things we're working on. The other big thing that you're going to see is starting in January of 2023, we're going to do a complete redo of the 2040 Unified Plan. Gwinnett County just adopted the last one. It's only been 5 years, and we really don't typically do a major update maybe every 10 years. But because the county has changed so quickly, our elected officials have changed, we're going to do a full-blown redo of that plan. So definitely look out for that. There's going to be lots of public involvement opportunities to help shape, what is the future land use and development of the county, infrastructure, parks, all that kind of stuff. We're going to be kicking that off hopefully early 2023. So that's sort of a big project that we're gearing up for, because we said there's just so much change that's happened in the county. And we think it's definitely time to redo that plan. So I know I've rambled on and on and on. I don't know if it's useful or not, but I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Matt, we really appreciate you spending your time doing this. This has been really, really, actually encouraging. You said,
Yes.
you said that you didn't want to be doom and gloom, but you were looking at past history. And I've had a pretty long history with Gwinnett County. It looks like you guys have changed the mindset for higher density, which I think is going to be a really positive thing. Can you give us the website? Because I know you guys don't subscribe to Q Public. What is the website we can go to really dig into this stuff?
In terms of which stuff,
All the development stuff. I mean, I know you've got a county site that we can kind of click on tabs.
yeah. So there's a couple resources. Definitely our webpage. You can look at the 2040 Unified Plan. We haven't put the housing study out on the website. It's available. I can definitely forward that to Sarah, and she can share. It's a public document. There's also, are you familiar with the county's GIS mapping system?
Yeah, I haven't looked at it.
So we did add recently in the last year, you can go on there and there's an active zoning layer that you can click on, and it'll show you, it'll pull up a layer that will show you all of the active zoning cases in the county. You can click on those. It'll tell you basic information about it. Then it'll take you to the zoning application. And you can actually see the plans and track the progress. But I can send a few links out. I'll email some links and some good places for you to find some of this information that you can share with the group.
That would be really great.
Matt, I think one of the questions that we get often is about tiny houses. People get that question, or like, sometimes you have.
Well, I've heard people say, "Oh my gosh, you're going to build a 1,500 square foot house. That's a tiny house." And I'm thinking, I think my house is about 1,600. So, yeah.
So, are there currently anywhere that allows for that in Gwinnett County?
Yeah, I mean, it's all about the construction type, right? So the big issue for Gwinnett County is we do have minimum unit size. So the only way you could do a tiny house development is to go to get a variance from that minimum unit size. Now we have a old manufactured housing district that I think does not have a minimum, but those, where those are located are very difficult. But that's definitely one of the things in that last sort of study I mentioned that we're looking at is there things we can do to loosen up to allow those. Now, tiny houses were at one point thought to be a solution to affordable housing, but now they've just kind of become something cute and, fun to do. And I don't know if y'all are familiar with the tiny house development they built in Clarkston, but I want to say those things were selling for, the per square foot of those was outrageous, just because they've kind of filled a different kind of niche, I think, than what they were originally intended for. But you could do them. I think there's a way to do them now as maybe an accessory dwelling unit with our zoning, but to do a tiny house development would require some relief through a variance.
What other questions do we have?
Hey, Matt, can you call the folks up in Forsyth and give them a little bit of lesson on this?
I got to teach my own people here first. So yeah, they've got some fun stuff going on over there though. It's an interesting county for sure.
What do you know about Inland Pass in Dickison? How many homes are going to be in that, and when do you think it'll be open?
In Dickison? Is it in the city of Dickison?
Yeah, it's called Inland Pass. I know there's a Publix going in there and some over 55 and some apartments. It's right below 316 off Hartman Road.
I'm not sure. I can find out.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I got one. Matt, you had said something about if the numbers justify going to a high rise, kind of getting into that high rise, higher density type thing. What would that number be? Have they talked about that?
I don't know the numbers right now. There's typically a per square foot lease rate that they have to be able to demand for an apartment to get those numbers. Structured parking is very expensive. I know it is. And then, after, so anything up to, 4 stories, 4 to 5 stories can be stick built. Once you go above that, it has to be steel. And so that's why in Gwinnett, I don't know if there's very few buildings that exceed 5 stories for that reason. So it's just a matter of economics. I don't know the specific numbers, but I don't think we're quite there, but I think we're getting close. I know there's going to be, are y'all familiar with the Venture Drive overlay? It's across from Gwinnett Place Mall. There's a development in there called, I think that one's called Tulip Grove. They are doing some structured parking and they're building 12-story apartment buildings. Yeah. So they, now the county, it's in an area that's targeted for redevelopment. So I believe the county is participating some in the construction of those parking decks. But they do have a couple of 12-story multifamily buildings, and they're in the development stage, but hopefully they'll get permits soon. So that'll be our really first structured parking project in the county. We have some sort of what we call slip decks. So there's some apartments where you may have parking and then one, layer parking above. It's basically like a 1-story parking deck. They're often, they're cheaper to build. They don't require as much structure because they're not holding as much weight. But I believe that'll be our first private parking deck built by a developer in the county. So it'll be interesting to see.
Are they trying to go live, work in that? And are they going to include the footprint of the mall, or do you know?
Yes.
Yeah, so the mall has its own project going on. Have you all been following that? But there's a couple concepts out there right now for redevelopment of the mall. And then once that that plan is presented to the Board of Commissioners, the next step will be for the county to release a request for developers. And then because the county, has a lot of power in that because they purchase so much of the land, they'll be able to offer the land at an exchange for getting the type of development that the community really wants to see there. So you can go to the Gwinnett Place. I can send that link with my email, but there's some redevelopment concepts out there for how to infill the mall. Now, there's a couple like the Mega Mart and the Macy's, they're maintaining ownership and they said they're going to continue. So those have to be worked into the redevelopment of the project. But yeah, that's also a very exciting project. And hopefully we'll see that bid out for potential developers later this year.
What would be the timeline on something like that?
So it always longer than what we think. I think if the bid goes out, depending on what type of response there is, I think you could start seeing some public investment in there in terms of open space and road infrastructure, hopefully within the next 3 years. Would be great.
Yeah.
Sugarloaf Parkway extension, is that real? Is that really happening? Is land been acquired?
Yes. I don't work in transportation, but I do know that's, as we've been looking at Rowan and the zoning over there, that's one thing we've been accounting for is when Sugarloaf is extended, that's also obviously going to have an impact on development. So I do know that is a real project that is moving forward.
Good to know. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Matt. We greatly appreciate it, and thanks for accommodating us.
No problem.
Thanks. All right.
Thank you. I'll send those links to you also.
Okay, great. And I'll disseminate them. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Matt.
Hopefully y'all got a little bit of knowledge out of that, and that was something different and interesting, and kind of help prepare you a little bit better to talk to future sellers and buyers.
The mindset of the county has obviously shifted dramatically because for years and years and years, you saw the permit numbers.
Yeah.
They didn't want any kind of high density or any kind of real, for lack of a better term, plain development. It was kind of a hodgepodge of things. And there was a resistance to high density. Now that has changed a lot, and that's going to make a major difference.
Yeah, that's cool.
Obviously, it's a new focus in town.
Yeah, that's interesting. Hopefully, maybe in the future we can get like Hall County or Bureau and kind of hear from them as well to hear that. Alicia, do you want to get Northwest in here, our lunch sponsor? Oh, sorry. We're hidden.
I was hiding back.
Yeah. All right, we have a great lunch out there, provided by Northwest Exterminating, one of our vendors. Thank you
ma'am.
for being here.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for having us. It's always a pleasure to come in and see everybody. And just wanted to let you guys know, we are the traditional termite pest control. We do crawl spaces. We do a product called Watson's Seal instead of encapsulating. That is a little more affordable for folks that if you have a little problem and want to take care of that moisture. It is a product that's been used since the 80s in more flood-prone, hurricane-prone areas. But that wood, once it's sprayed and sealed, it can be submerged in water for up to 18 hours before taking on any type of moisture. So that's really going to help stop the moisture from coming out of the ground and affecting your flooring, especially if you have hardwood floors up there. And like I said, it's a lot less expensive than totally encapsulating a crawl space. So that's another option for you. And it was funny that he was talking about rentals and things like that this morning on the news. I don't know if you guys watch Fox 5, but they were saying, we already know you're in a bidding war for housing, right? Now they say it's moved into the rentals. And now they're doing bidding wars for rentals and the rents going up and that kind of thing. So kind of hoping that settles down a little bit because he was also talking about, I have a Duluth police officer that lives out by me and I live out towards Athens, but he can't afford housing in Gwinnett County, which is unfortunate. So I'm hoping that kind of evens itself out eventually. With the fact that, there's such a bidding war going on, we know a lot of the contracts are not asking for anything. Please let us have an opportunity, even if the contract says, we're not asking for termite letter, termite warranty, any of those inspections. Go ahead and get that inspection for your buyer just so they know what's going on and, we'll protect them with that investment that they've made. And I think you've got a giveaway there.
$25 Visa gift card drawing from Northwest Exterminating. So we'll let you do the honors.
Get your tickets ready. Y'all ready? All right. Winning number 370823.
Yeah. Winner.
Welcome.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And we're excited about the yummy lunch out there.
Yeah,
So
we got chicken salad chick out here for you.
it's always a winner.
Yes.
Always a winner.
Absolutely. I'll go get it all ready for you.
All right. Go get some great lunch. And thank y'all for coming today.